University, and I joined myself to this great chapter about 3 years ago. Some call me Brother Caver, some just call me D, some call me Pastor, and even to this day, a few men still call me Dean Big Brother Ice Cold Caver. But whatever you want to call me, I am honored to serve as your host and moderator for this evening. We're going to start this evening by paying homage to our brothers who were instrumental in founding our chapter. And Brother Louis McLean will now present a chapter history and honor two very special fraternity brothers tonight. I'll turn it over to Brother McLean. He will be on in just 1 minute. And again, we thank you all for joining us tonight. We are excited. This is part of our celebration. Of course, we got to do things virtual because it is 2020, but we are going to make the best of it. And I hope you will enjoy tonight. We have some great panelists who will talk to you tonight, share some of their knowledge of the past and the present. So we have a few technical difficulties, but they'll be taken care of shortly. And for those who are watching, if you wouldn't mind commenting your name in the comment section, that'll help us get a good idea of who graciously joined us this evening. And we thank you so much for doing that. I would tell a few jokes, but I'm not sure if you would find them very funny. But we are still working on technical difficulties, but we'll get them solved shortly here.
Okay. You should be good to go, Brother McLean.
I think we're about to go to Brother McLean now.
Go ahead, Brother Caver. I think he's having some issues turning on his mic.
Okay, we're having some, again, as of course, you know, we're having some issues, but we're going to go on. We'll try to return to Brother McLean a little bit later in the program. Next, we'll have, and let me double check, I believe we have Brother Brooks will be on next. I'm checking with my technical people now.
Yeah, there's Brother McLean. He's ready.
Oh, Brother McLean is ready. So here we go. I'll turn it over to you, Brother McLean. Thank you, because I'm dying over here.
Brother, my apologies for that.
No
Alpha
problem.
Phi Fraternity Incorporated was founded on December 4th, 1906 by 7 young African-American students on the campus of Cornell University, an elite Ivy League school in Ithaca, New York. These young men had a vision, and 34 years later, 11 Alpha men banded together to charter Alpha Phi Alpha's 162nd chapter in the great city of Fort Worth, Texas, Beta Chi Lambda. Now imagine that, 162 Alpha chapters in 34 years. What a testimony to the spirit of our brotherhood. And speaking of the spirit of brotherhood, Beta Chi Lambda is the 3rd graduate chapter of Alpha in the state of Texas. Originally, ironically, a majority of our charter members and fraternity brothers live within a 5-mile radius of our Evans Street meeting location in the historic South Side Fort Worth. Now, the spirit of Alpha summons us for duty. The charter members of Beta Chi Lambda are as follows: Frank G. Adams, a noted principal at M.L. Kirkland High School; William Rakeem Jr., an esteemed educator at I.M. Terrell High School; Dr. Jesse Burnett, a noted physician, among the first African-American doctors granted privileges at white hospitals; Henry Denson, community organizer and educator at the Gwynn Schools; Clarence W. Flint Jr., business owner of the Flint Hotel and Flint Drugstore; Leonard James, executive secretary of the McDonald's YMCA, who oversaw much of its early expansion; Alice Malloy, the first African-American district attorney in Tarrant County; Charles Maxwell, noted physician; Joe Pinkert, a decorated educator at Dunbar High School; Dr. Riley Ransom Jr., civil rights activist, and managed the first hospital that was built specifically for African Americans in Fort Worth; and Brother Felix Thurman, a USDA inspector. Beta Chi Lambda chapter brothers have served in all branches of the military and have championed community issues since the chapter's inception. Most notable programs in the early days were undergraduate scholarships that coincided with the National Go to High School, Go to College program, and an Alpha Youth Mentoring program, which included Alpha Bicycle Patrols, helping to keep the community safe, clean, and providing direction for our most vulnerable community members. It was a bicycle patrol from Fort Worth that inspired the national Project Alpha youth programming. The brothers of Beta Chi Lambda have been instrumental in founding the college chapters at Midwestern State University, Tarleton State University, Texas Christian University, the University of Texas at Arlington, and continue to serve as undergraduate advisors at several: Manly Deeds, Scholarship, and Love for All Mankind. Holding high the aims of Alpha, Beta Chi Lambda continues its scholarship efforts for high school students, maintains its mentoring through Alpha Academy, and is known as Fort Worth's favorite frat for the volunteer hours, collaboration, and critical assistance that she provides to the Fort Worth community. Our history provides a blueprint for a beautiful future. This special program is dedicated to 2 of our most distinguished senior brothers, Brother Emmanuel McKinney and Brother Ambrose Adams. First, let me begin with Brother McKinney. Brother McKinney was initiated through Gamma Eta Lambda chapter in Austin, Texas on December 12th, 1958. When the Epsilon Iota chapter was chartered on the campus of UT Austin in April 1960, Brother McKinney was among its charter members and served as treasurer. During his undergraduate years, Brother McKinney appeared in the October 1958 issue of the Sphinx magazine as a member of Alpha's probationary colony. The article gave insight into the struggles of young African-American men attempting to attain the American dream on an all-white college campus. Campus activities were not allowed to the few African-American students. However, Brother McKinney was a part of the United States Air Force ROTC program and was the first African-American graduate from the program. This pioneering accomplishment was memorialized in the October 1962 edition of the Sphinx magazine. Brother Emmanuel McKinney has served Fort Worth's favorite frat as president, treasurer, finance chair, and has been active with the chapter since his arrival in 1965. Also, just this year, He was inducted into the Texas Council of Alpha Chapters Hall of Fame for his distinguished service to all of the chapters in our region. Brothers, I'd like to give Brother Emmanuel McKinney a round of applause. Brother, we celebrate you. And in a moment, we're gonna give you the opportunity to speak and say some words if you like.
Okay.
Moving on to Brother Ambrose Adams. Brother Ambrose Adams was initiated into Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated through Beta Tau Lambda on April 11th, 1963. Brother Adams is one of the many chapter brothers who served our country's military with distinction. He retired from the U.S. Army as a colonel and worked professionally as Director of Continuing Education at Prairie View A&M University. Brother Adams has served on the Tarrant County Advisory Board as a personal analyst for the city of Fort Worth, as Director of Community Services at Tarrant County Community College. Recognizing his place among servant leaders, Brother Adams served as chapter president in 1969, bringing with him an emphasis on professionalism and reconciliation. Chapter programs included the Alpha Merit Program for high school age young men, which was a precursor to today's Botillion program. Now, here's an interesting thought. Among the distinguished alumni of Beta Tau Lambda Alpha Merit of our merit program is our highly esteemed and beloved brother Roy C. Brooks, Tarrant County Commissioner. Brother Ambrose Adams later served as president of the Tarrant County National Pan-Hellenic Council, representing Beta Tau Lambda, and has been a mentor to all who has followed in chapter leadership. Brothers, let's give Brother Ambrose Adams a round of applause. Thank you so much, Brother Cavers. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Brother McLean. We want to give our honorees an opportunity to comment. I believe that Brother Emmanuel McKinney is on the line with us. So, Brother McKinney, would you like to comment? We were just so as we honor you tonight.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank you, brothers, for this program and for what you have done so far. It is true that I'm a little bit different in that I was a member of the graduate chapter before I was a member of the undergraduate chapter. Because at the University of Texas at that time, there was not a chapter. And so the way to be brought into the fraternity was through the graduate chapter. And then once we were approved to become a chapter, I am a member, a charter member of that chapter. Following my career in a short career, 3 years really, in the Air Force, I was back in my home city of Houston for a short while before lining up a job here in Fort Worth with what was then called General Dynamics Aerospace Corporation, now Lockheed Martin. Came here in 1965, joined up with the chapter at age, 24, hadn't made 25 yet. And I was just thinking as I looked at the brothers and listened, at that particular time, I was the young guy in the chapter and I knew how to spell computer. And so that made, that put me in a little bit of a position where I was able to do some things that hadn't been done before. And never did I really think that I would get to the point where I would see the day when everybody walking just about has a computer in their hand, in the pocket, or somewhere. So how times has changed. As far as my time with the chapter here, it has been a delight and a pleasure just to show you how things work out. Upon accepting the job and being moved here to go to work for what was then General Dynamics, I called person who had been initiated into the Sphinx Club with me, and told him I was coming to Fort Worth to look for a place to live. He hooked me up with an alpha realtor. Uh, that realtor sold me a house and hooked me up with another brother who lived only about 3, maybe 4 blocks at the most from me. His name happened to have been Brother Kervin W. Carter. And ever since then, I would not have been able to get out of Alpha if I had wanted to, or not be a participant, active participant. And so, as it turns out now, uh, 10 days from now, on December the 12th, I will celebrate, if the Lord delays his coming, uh, from 62 years in Alpha. And since 1965, I suppose that's 35 plus 20, so 55 years in Beta Tau Lambda. I am delighted to see what is going on with our chapter. And even though I am speaking to you from Houston, because of I'm here for hopefully just a temporary time while my wife is receiving some treatment here. I look forward to returning and at least occasionally being able to get to a meeting, assuming we get past this pandemic. Brothers, I want to thank you for all that you are doing and will do in the future to keep this fraternity moving and going in the right direction. The potential, which has really excited me most, for a group of men with the education, with the background, with the experience, with the talent, skills to help move this country into what it really should be. I don't think there's any greater really than it is in Alpha Phi Alpha. With those words, I won't dominate this program, so I'll quiet down a little bit and let someone else speak.
All right, thank you so much, Brother McKinney. Beta Tau Lambda, we thank you and we do honor you and Brother Adams tonight. Now we turn to our outstanding panel of brothers who will help us in bridging the light. More precisely, how did the light of Alpha shine back in the day, and how can we keep it shining in the present day and for tomorrow? I will read the bios of some, and some later on will introduce themselves. But Beta Tau Lambda was founded in 1940. So we're 1940, we're thinking World War II. We're thinking Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The fraternity is only 34 years old. A new house costs $4,000, and nuclear weapons are just now being developed. So to our more mature panelists, let me put some pressure on you tonight. We need you to fill in some of those gaps from 1940 to 2020. Uncover our origin story, if you will. We need you to pull from your wealth of knowledge to enlighten us of past triumphs and struggles so that we may never take Beta Tau Lambda for granted. And to our younger panelists, you are not off the hook. We're calling on you to update us on the proper mindset for contemporary times. We are even going to ask you to predict the near future and how our beloved chapter must grow and adapt to ever-changing circumstances. So let's begin. We first turn to Brother Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Brooks. Really no introduction is necessary for a man who has served Fort Worth and Tarrant County faithfully for many years. So Brother Brooks, I have a personal historical question. I received news that you have a question has a very interesting answer. What were you doing on the day that our fraternity brother and civil rights icon, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated?
Thank you for that question, Brother Caver. And before I answer it, let me say to Brother Emmanuel McKinney, brother, it's good to hear your voice and to know that you are still well and strong, and that this brotherhood appreciates you. We love you and we wish you all the best that our brotherhood has to offer. To answer your question, Brother Caver, the day that Brother Dr. King was assassinated, April the 4th, 1968, is the day that my line brothers and I crossed the burning sands
Wow.
into Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. We pledged at Zeta Eta chapter at Columbia University. We had watched the newscasts earlier that afternoon that announced that our dear brother had been assassinated at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. My line brothers and I had an appointment that evening. To us, it was another evening of pledging. Though we were asked to wear black suits and yellow shirts and black and gold ties, and to meet at the Amsterdam Avenue gate to Columbia University, where we were placed in a single file line and marched from Columbia University at 116th Street and Amsterdam Avenue through Harlem to the fraternity house at 141st Street and Edgecombe Avenue on Sugar Hill in Harlem.
Wow.
There was a riot
Yes.
going on around this line of bald-headed young black men
Wow.
marching in single file up to the fraternity house. Well, once we got to the frat house, pledging ensued. And we held high the light of Alpha for many hours. Sometime after midnight, making it actually April the 5th, we crossed the burning sands and were initiated into the Brotherhood of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Zeta Eta chapter at Columbia University. To me, this story demonstrates that the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Yes, sir. Wow, that is an incredible story. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Let me ask you this, Brother Brooks. As far as Beta Tau Lambda is concerned, tell us something about the political climate and how the chapter's interaction with that climate throughout the years.
Well, I have been familiar with Beta Tau Lambda all of my life because my father pledged Beta Tau Lambda and was a faithful member of Beta Tau Lambda until his death in 2004. Beta Tau Lambda was a shining example of educated and committed alpha men dedicated to bettering the community in which they lived and worked and played. Beta Tau Lambda was very politically involved. They, of course, registered Black people to vote. They ran a voteless people as a hopeless people program, which was a national initiative of Alpha Phi Alpha. They registered many, many people to vote. And as members of the Brotherhood were very civically and politically involved individually, the chapter was their base. They always knew that Beta Tau Lambda had their backs and was prepared to follow them into the breach as they led the civil rights movement in Fort Worth during those early years.
Wow. Wow, thank you so much for just that piece of information is very encouraging and enlightening. Brother Brooks, thank you for your time tonight and for sharing your knowledge with us. We really, really appreciate it. God bless you.
My pleasure, brother.
Next, we will bring on two panelists together. The first is Brother Jerry Holmes. Brother Jerry Holmes was born 1951, Fort Worth, Texas. He is a graduate of Everman High School and the University of North Texas. He holds a BS degree and a Master's of Secondary Education and also an administrative certificate. Brother Holmes has served as a classroom teacher, a vice principal, and principal at all levels in his career in education. Brother Holmes has served in many other areas of the city. He's been president of the Ambassadors Club of Fort Worth, president of the Fort Worth Alliance Black School Educators. And at Beth Eden Baptist Church, he is currently serving as a deacon, trustee board member, and chairman of finance. Brother Holmes was initiated into the Eta Epsilon chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity in the fall of 1971 and has 49 years of membership in the House of Alpha. Brother Holmes has served as in his college chapter, he served as president, vice president, and dean of pledges of the chapter during his years at North Texas. Brother Holmes is also a past president of Beta Tau Lambda. He has been married 42 years, has 2 children and 2 grandchildren. So Brother Holmes, let me ask you this question. We've just finished a very interesting, to say the least, election season. How did Beta Tau Lambda attack the problem of, in the past, of getting people out to vote and overcome voter suppression in years past?
Hey, brothers.
Good evening.
In response to that question, the chapter has had the opportunity to transport people to the voting polls, to make them aware of who was running and what the favor was with the Black community. Like Brooks said, we stress the thing that hopeless people is the voters people, the hopeless people. So we tried to get them out to understand that if they vote, they can make a change. And we did by holding seminars and then going to each community and inviting people to go out and vote.
Well, thank you, brother. Thank you. As we continue on the same subject, we're also pleased to present Brother Brenton Flowers. Brother Flowers was also born in Fort Worth in 1990. He received his bachelor's degree from Texas Wesleyan University and a master's from Texas Christian University. He currently works at Texas Wesleyan as an Upward Bound coordinator, where he helps first generation and low income students get to college. It was a cold night, November 9th, 2019. Brother Flowers crossed the burning sands to become a member of the oldest and coldest fraternity in existence, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Beta Tau Lambda chapter. Since joining BTL, Brother Flowers serves on the March of Dimes Committee, the Beta Tau Lambda Voteless People is a Hopeless People Committee, and on the Retention Committee. So Brother Flowers, let me ask you, how has Beta Tau Lambda attacked the challenge of getting people out to vote today in the present hour?
Well, Beta Tau Lambda has done quite a few things, and thank you for the question. As you know, Beta Tau Lambda, we have hosted candidate forums to allow people within the community to come out and listen to the candidates representing their district so they can know who they will be voting for. As well as we have used social media to get messages out there to let people know when to vote and where to vote and how to vote. Not only that, we have had brothers within the fraternity become deputy registrars so we could go out into the community and get people registered to vote. As well as when we did have the days where we had voting, especially the election, we went out and we brought snacks and food and went to the different voting locations so people would not have to get out of line so they could go and vote. So these are just a couple of things that we have done in order to get people out there to vote.
All right, thank you, Brother Flowers, and thank you, Brother Holmes. Very insightful and enlightening. Well, we're going to turn to two other panelists. We're going to talk about mentoring just a little bit. I'm going to ask our next two panelists to introduce themselves. We'll have Brother Harmon, and then we'll have Brother Banks. And so I'm going to ask Brother Harmon to give a brief introduction, followed by Brother Banks. He'll introduce himself, and then I'll follow up with a question to each of them. All right, Brother Harmon, will you give us a brief introduction?
Thank you, Brother Caver. Again, I'm Glenn Harmon. I'm the immediate past president of Beta Tau Lambda and the current historian. I was initiated into Alpha in the fall of 1979 on the campus of East Texas State University into the Zeta Tau chapter. We didn't have a graduate chapter on that campus at the time. Upon graduation, I associated with the Zeta Tau Lambda chapter in Dallas, where I served as chapter advisor to the Zeta Tau chapter. And while in college in my undergraduate years, I was Dean of Pledges and president of the Zeta Tau chapter.
All right, thank you, Brother Harmon. Brother Banks, if you would give us a brief introduction.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Dontrell Banks. I am a fall 2018 initiate the Jewel Club. I am from Mississippi, been living in Texas for 6 years, a graduate of B. Jackson State University. I got my bachelor's in accounting in 2014. I also received my master's in business administration. Currently, I'm serving as the financial secretary for the chapter. I've served on the budget and finance committee and been a mentor for the Alpha Academy mentoring program. Right now, I'm currently working as a teacher for Fort Worth ISD. This is my second year. And I think that's pretty much about myself.
All right, thank you, Brother Banks. Well, brothers, mentoring has always been an integral part of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. So, Brother Harmon, I'll turn to you first. What kind of mentoring programs did Beta Tau Lambda have in the past?
Thank you for that question, Brother Caver. So we'll talk about the chapter reorganization around 1947. Shortly after our chartering, World War II commenced, and our chapter brothers answered the call of the country and served. Upon the end of the war, around 1947, the chapter reorganized and then hit the ground running. Our history book, The History of Alpha Phi Alpha, a Development in College Life, does memorialize one of our early programs, which was a bicycle patrol. Some of the chapter brothers organized the young men in the neighborhood to, as they rode around on their bicycles, to make note of anything that they saw that seemed out of place, and they would report that back to the brothers. Now, this kind of struck a nerve with me, because if we had this type of program today, the Atiana Jefferson situation could have turned out a lot different. Just think if a young man on a bicycle had ridden by and saw their door open and went and reported it to one of the chapter brothers, and then someone from the neighborhood possibly could have passed by, and a whole different outcome would have been realized. But that's just one of the programs. We had a lot of brothers at that time who were into education, principals at the various Negro high schools, because we are talking about a segregated Fort Worth. We had Brother Dale Lee, who was a principal at the Gwen schools, and then Brother Brackeen and Brother Adams, who were all esteemed and highly thought of educators who had access to these young kids who needed mentoring and brought them into the folds of Alpha for mentoring. Also, we had Brother Leonard James, who was the executive secretary of the McDonald YMCA. So brothers were very active in the YMCA programming as well. Some of the programs that we've had through the years included, of course, the Bicycle Patrol. The Alpha Merit program came along a little later, which was a precursor, as Brother McLean mentioned in his history, which was a precursor to the Battalion program. And young high school seniors were mentored by men of Alpha on college preparation and how to be a gentleman in society. Through the years, we developed a couple of other programs for younger men. The Brotherhood of Onyx was one of our mentoring programs. So we had a lot of programs like this through the years, where we reached out to the neighborhood, took kids, so to speak, under our wing, and showed them how to be men who contributed to society.
Wow, wow. Thank you, Brother Harmon. Brother Banks, I'll turn to you. Things have changed drastically. They've changed drastically quickly, even in the past 5 years, even just this year. So how has Beta Tau Lambda approached mentoring in the present time?
First, I will start by saying the program, the Brotherhood of Onyx, the name has been changed now to the Alpha Academy program. That's one of the first changes. And the way Beta Tau Lambda is taking the approach is by being innovative and by continuing to being those leaders and doing those great things, by setting the tone for those guys to continue to get career readiness, and the Alpha Battalion, the Alpha Battalion, and getting the guys ready for their careers. They're getting them ready for college, teaching them how to apply for scholarships. how to dress for the future, and just making sure that the guys have a curriculum. With the Alpha Academy, one thing that keeps the students engaged and involved is their curriculum and having something to work towards each year, setting goals, just getting them engaged and involved, giving them that sense of ownership, of letting them know that we, the men of Beta Tau Lambda, we're here, that we're a brotherhood, that they're not by themselves. They have anything that they need to talk about. We give them that advice. We talk to them. We continue to be leaders and show them what it's like, what it means to be a man, and what it means to continue to grow and prosper. As far as the future, I just say just continue to keep doing what we're doing, and do more technology engagement. As we see now with COVID-19, things are all virtual. We can't really meet with the scholars in person, so we're having those virtual meetings. We're engaging with the summer camps, the summer computer camps. So just continue to get more games involved, more technology, and continue to get the kids prepared, the scholars prepared for their future, prepared for their careers. And I think that's pretty good.
All right, thank you, Brother Banks. Wow, so much good information, knowledge has been shared tonight. I am even further humbled and honored to be a part of this great chapter. Thank you, brothers. Thank you so much. Well, we have a couple more panelists for you tonight. We're going to turn to Brother Agua. I'm going to ask that Brother David Agua would introduce himself to you, and then I will follow up with a question for him. All right, thank you for being with us tonight, Brother Agua. Introduce yourself.
All right, thank you for having me, Brother Capper. My name is David Agua. I am a Fall 17 initiate of Alpha Phi Alpha through the Eta Psi chapter, seated at Texas Christian University. I'm also a 2020 spring graduate from Texas Christian University, with a Bachelor's of Science in Communications, and I currently work as a college advisor for Fort Worth ISD.
All right, thank you. All right, brother. People's mindsets, value systems, you name it, they've changed quite a bit over 80 years. Yet men and young men continue to be drawn to Alpha. So I'm going to ask you, what draws a man, a younger man, a man that's younger than 30, to the light of Alpha Phi Alpha?
Okay, I think that with that, even looking at all the years that have passed, looking at the actual larger organization as a whole, and then also within Beta Tau Lambda, I think that the two biggest things that I would say are the ideas of brotherhood, and then also the idea of service, as cliche as it may sound to say for both of those. With the former, one of the biggest things that I think about when looking at it is my personal experience with me being, with me coming through undergrad and not necessarily being in love with my college experience, but then after finding the light and finding Alpha, finding like the different tenets that basically made it more enjoyable. Looking at a graduate level, one of the biggest things that always stood out to me was the idea that grown men who are like respected inside their community and who are in high positions and who are working full jobs and have their own kids at home will come together and decide to hold each other accountable with the idea of serving the community in mind. That's one of the biggest things that's always stood out to me after I kind of like started looking at the fraternity and really thinking about it. And even in my position now, that's one of the things that made me realize that after I graduated, I still needed to basically reaffirm my commitment and come straight into the graduate chapter instead of trying to take time off or say, okay, well, I'll think about that later. That's one of the big things that stood out to me. And that's one of the biggest things that I think that keeps the fraternity alive. And that has also made Beta Tau Lambda a continuous light in Fort Worth.
Thank you so much, brother. Wow, insightful. I guess the foundation is still strong. Thank you. I'm next going to introduce you to Brother Mormon. Brother Blake Mormon. Brother Blake Mormon is a brother with 30 years of service in meeting planning and destination management. He is currently the director of sales for the Fort Worth Convention Center. Brother Mormon is also the current director of conventions for the Southwest region of Alpha Phi Alpha. He has held influential posts at the Texas Council of Alpha Chapters, the Will Rogers Memorial Center, and the Jubilee Theater. He has always been very active in the community. He has held offices in the NAACP, the Rotary Club, the Ambassadors, the UTA Alumni Association, the TCU Black Alumni Alliance, just to name a few. He is also an alumnus of Trimble Tech High School, and I will not hold that against him. He's also alumnus of UTA and TCU. He's also a past president of Beta Tau Lambda and a life member of our dear fraternity. He knows Fort Worth and he knows Tarrant County. So, Brother Mormon, you have seen the community, you have served the community in many capacities. So you're well qualified, I believe, to answer this. What are some of the biggest challenges Beta Tau Lambda has faced in the past and today?
Well, thank you, Brother Caver, for that introduction and for the question. And yes, I am a bulldog. That is a Trimble Tech bulldog, not to be confused with any other bulldogs, and proud of it. So yeah, thinking about that question, I think back to the early 80s when, as you noted, I was initiated at Ada Psi chapter at TCU, and I was initiated in spring 1982. And the biggest challenge at the time for BTL was the presence of the chapter wasn't there for the connection, with the connection to the community or the presence in Alpha. And I think it mainly had to do with the times, and everything has an ebb and flow. And during that time, it was transitional. And in fact, we always had prominent members of the community as members of the chapter, but the chapter itself wasn't, as I just stated, as the presence wasn't there in the community. And in fact, when I was initiated and going through the process, we never met any members of BTL. And we never met any until about a year after I was in the fraternity. And that just so happened to be at a state convention that was being held at the time in Arlington. And just kind of by chance met these brothers at one of the hospitality suites. And so my line brother and I, when we realized who we were talking to, we were like, okay, we've got to start this connection and we need to start it now. And that's what we did. And from that point forward, we started building a relationship with the members of Beta Tau Lambda. Later on in 1988, I did join the chapter. It was been mentioned by Brother McKinney about Brother Kirby Carter. Brother Kirby Carter was one of those brothers that once you met him, he did, he was an educator and loved young people and embraced us and embraced them. And once you met him and was an alpha, you were not given, you were not going to get away. You had to serve. And I had that same experience. We immediately started working and, we started meeting the brothers in the chapter, and it was evident that brothers like Jerry Holmes, Emmanuel McKinney, Kirby Carter, as I just stated, George Williams, Williams Batts, Mr. Dale T. Lee, Milton Johnson, Luther Craft Jr., all these guys, they wanted the chapter to grow. They wanted it to grow both in membership and community service. And, they encouraged young people. They provided the financial support needed because we didn't have any money. All we had was time and energy, but they were willing to do what it took to make sure that we succeeded. They supported whatever programs we brought forward and made sure we were successful. And when I say we, it was brothers like Keith Anderson, Darren Turner, Nicara Polk, Taiwan Guy, and myself, and others, many others, who, set out and pushed forward. We wanted Fort Worth, we wanted not only just Alpha known, but we wanted to be known what was happening in Fort Worth. So we went out and we started collaborating and creating projects that we thought would, bring prominence to the chapter and to the city. We encouraged we put programs together that would encourage newly graduated brothers to come to the chapter, not worrying about having to pay their dues. We would pay the dues for them. All we needed you to do was provide your time and your energy like we did, and to build a foundation that we needed to build and that we needed to rebuild. We were willing to host state conventions, regional conventions, bring national programs to light. We raised money for the MLK Memorial, all kinds of things, anything we could do to bring prominence to fraternity. As a result, today, Beta Tau Lambda is a much different chapter than it was 30 years ago when I joined the chapter. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm very excited about that. And I think with that, though, now that we have some 100+ members, our new challenge is now to keep brothers engaged, to understand that when we bring in, and for these new brothers to understand that when they come in and they see all these members out there, that they don't need to just come in and sit down. And even those of us who are still, that have been in the chapter a while, we don't necessarily need to just sit down when we see the new ones come in. That is the challenge, to keep engaged, to, now we are, our presence is there. When I see things like the Alpha Academy, the mentoring program, I remember when we first started Brotherhood of Onyx and we prayed that we had 5 members, and now I go to a meeting and I see all these young men and these families and that are encouraged, and that's very encouraging. And it makes me know that what we did mattered. It laid the foundation for a lot. And I just want to make sure, and I want the brothers to understand that the foundation is there, it's laid, but in order for it to remain and continue to do the work that we can do, we have to stay engaged. And that's the #1 challenge I see Beta Tau Lambda has in the future.
Thank you, Brother Morgan. Very well said. I think that's a perfect way to end our panelist discussion tonight. Hopefully, like me, fellow brothers and even our guests have been enlightened, encouraged, challenged, and inspired. So to our panelists, I'd like to thank you for agreeing to speak tonight. To my brothers, thank you for allowing me to represent you as the host of this program. Again, to our guests, thank you for celebrating with us. I'll now turn the rest of the program over to our chapter president, Brother Jay Corzine. 06, my brothers.
Good evening, brothers.
Good evening.
All right, let me see. I don't know if you guys can see me or not, but first and foremost, I would like to say on behalf of the Beta Tau Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, again, I'd like to thank all of our guests who joined us tonight as we've discussed Bridging the Light, celebrating 80 years of leadership and service. This has been an outstanding program, and I want to thank all of our panelists for sharing their insights and experiences this evening. Thank you to our moderator, Brother Dimitri Kaver, for steering our ship tonight. And finally, thank you to Brother Glenn Harmon and your committee for your efforts in putting this program together. Now, as we close and December 4th approaches, I'd like to wish all of the brothers watching happy Founders Day, and to the brothers of Beta Tau Lambda, happy Charter Day and happy Founders Day. And a reminder for everybody to join us on Saturday, December the 5th at 12 p.m. for our Founders Day virtual celebration at DFW Alphas on all social media platforms. And with that, we'd like to close this program as we close all of our programs with singing of the hymn. Brother Williams.
Trust scholarship and love for all mankind are the aims of our dear fraternity. We all ever love noble ideals and aims, carrying out earth's and heaven's grand command. Our true hearts ever strive success's goal to gain, that our fraternity's praises may be sung. Alpha Phi Alpha, the pride of our hearts, and loved by us dearly art thou. We cherish thy precepts, thy banner shall be raised to thy glory, thy honor and renown. College days swiftly pass, imbued with memories fond, and the recollection slowly fades away. Our renown, aid by aid, and dear fraternal bond, may they ever abide and with us stay. Alpha Phi Alpha, the pride of our hearts, and loved by us dearly art thou. We cherish thy precepts, thy banner shall be raised to thy glory, thy honor and renown. O Lord, may the true spirit of fraternity rule our hearts, guide our thoughts, and control our lives, so that we may become through thee servants of all. Amen.
This concludes Bridging the Light, celebrating 80 years of leadership and service. Good night, everyone.
Good night.